Inside the Golden Hawk Guild Hall, Guildmaster Lucius coldly informs a member, Laurent Gill, that he is being fired. Lucius states that according to his records, Laurent is unqualified to be a member of the guild. Stunned, Laurent demands to know why, protesting that this is cruel. He argues that he has been exploited, having made significant contributions to the guild by using his unique skill appraisal ability to recruit every member. Laurent reflects on the nature of their world, where people are born with miraculous abilities called skills that determine their professions. He had used his own skill appraisal to discover the hidden potential in other guild members and help them improve their abilities, which directly resulted in the Golden Hawk's growth into a large and successful guild. His thoughts drift to the past, recalling a time when he and Lucius were close friends. However, a gap began to form between them after Laurent discovered Lucius's powerful skill and helped him improve it, which led to Lucius's rapid rise in status and power. In a flashback, Laurent recalls his past self. He knew he wasn't good at socializing, so he chose to support the Golden Hawk Guild and its leader, Lucius, from behind the scenes, letting them take all the credit for his work. Despite his efforts, he feels utterly betrayed. The memory of the confrontation plays out. Lucius coldly asks what Laurent has to say for himself. Laurent argues that Lucius saw all the work he did for the guild, recruiting and training many members with his skill appraisal ability. Lucius dismisses this, stating that for an adventurer, tangible achievements are all that matter. To prove his point, Lucius orders a guild member named Diane to read Laurent's official record for the past month. She announces his dismal rankings: 98th out of 100 in monsters defeated, 76th in items collected, and 86th in quests cleared. Lucius points out that for a veteran of over 5 years, such poor performance is unacceptable. Lucius claims he can no longer justify paying Laurent, as it would set a bad example for the other members. He offers a small pouch of money as severance and tells him to get out. Laurent is stunned, reflecting on how he had been devoted to the guild and to Lucius until that very moment. Feeling like a fool, Laurent initially refuses the money, but Lucius insists. As Laurent turns to leave in defeat, Lucius and Diane laugh mockingly behind him. Internally, Laurent seethes, vowing that he will never forget Lucius's betrayal. Walking away from the guild hall, Laurent's anger gives way to a chilling realization. He begins to suspect his expulsion was a deliberate plot. He recalls past quests where Lucius had purposefully grouped him with unsuitable party members and failed to provide necessary items like potions, effectively sabotaging his missions and engineering his poor record. As his belongings were tossed out, Laurent recalled Lucius's final, cutting words: "We don't need useless people in Golden Hawk." The betrayal from the person he trusted and supported without reservation solidified into a burning rage. Crouching on the street, he swore to himself, "I won't forgive you. One day, I'll defeat you." Standing before the imposing doors of the guild that had cast him out, Laurent made a silent promise to his former rival: "Wait for me, Lucius." He resolved that even if it meant starting over from the very bottom, he would climb to the top as an adventurer on his own terms. Sometime later, Laurent arrived at a different adventurers' guild, determined to find his first job since his expulsion. He knew he had to stay strong to one day teach Lucius a lesson. However, he immediately sensed a heavy atmosphere, noticing several other adventurers whispering and staring at him. Pushing the feeling aside, he approached the reception window as the clerk called for the next person and asked if there was any work available for an appraiser. At the Adventurers Guild, Laurent is stunned to learn there are no jobs available for him. The receptionist confirms that after searching, she found 0 suitable quests. As he processes this, he immediately suspects Lucius is responsible, while nearby adventurers recognize him as the appraiser who was kicked out of the Golden Hawk Guild. Laurent realizes the receptionist's cold attitude is because everyone knows about his expulsion from the prestigious Golden Hawk Guild. The reputation he once had now works against him, locking him out of any opportunities. He reflects that all the friendships and connections he thought he had have collapsed. His feet sore and his spirit weary, Laurent wanders the streets, seeing only the dark reality of his situation. Lost in thought, he blames Lucius for his predicament and accidentally bumps into a hostile man on the street, who aggressively demands to know what he wants. The man's companion advises him to leave Laurent alone, noting that nothing good can come from getting involved with someone who has such a grim expression. The group moves on, leaving Laurent to find an empty park bench and sit down, completely isolated. Sitting alone, Laurent sinks into despair. He feels tired, believing everything about him has been denied and taken away. Convinced there is nothing he can do, he resolves to give up entirely, wishing only for relief from his suffering. Just then, a voice calls out his name. Looking up, he sees a woman in a witch's hat and cloak. She introduces herself as Lillian Lausier, an adventurer from the Guardians of the Magic Tree, and asks if he is all right. Lillian reminisces about how long it has been since their last quest together, thanking Laurent for his past help. She reveals that his unique skill helped her discover her own hidden skill, floating, which improved her accuracy and allowed her to rise to A rank. Noticing his downtrodden expression, she asks him what happened. The question triggers a memory for Laurent of a time he found Lillian in distress. He had rushed to her side after learning she had been kicked out of her party, asking why they would do such a thing. Lillian, distraught, could only apologize for worrying him. Back in the present, Lillian presses him to tell her what happened. Laurent explains his predicament, stating that his limited use as an adventurer stems from only possessing the skill appraisal skill. Lillian counters this, reminding him that he has developed countless talented members for the guild with that very skill, even if it isn't suited for direct combat. She expresses disbelief that he was kicked out, stating she always believed that as long as he was there, no other guild could compare to Golden Hawk. Laurent admits his own confusion, as he thought his leader, Lucius, understood his value. Seeing Lillian become depressed on his behalf, he quickly tries to reassure her, insisting that Golden Hawk isn't the only guild in the world. Lillian's demeanor shifts from despondent to determined. She looks at Laurent with a bright smile and makes a bold proposition: they should create a new guild together. She suggests an alchemy guild as a starting point, leaving Laurent stunned by the sudden idea. She elaborates on her strategy, explaining that they are in great demand for a mineral called earthcraft, used for weapon repair. However, the guilds capable of producing it prioritize orders from Golden Hawk, putting them at a disadvantage. Lillian declares that to build a better clan and escape Golden Hawk's influence, they need to establish their own independent guild. Lillian continues her pitch, arguing that Laurent's unique ability to discover people with alchemy skills makes him the perfect candidate to train new talent and lead a guild. She expresses her absolute confidence that he can create a clan even greater than the Golden Hawk. While Lillian passionately insists he can succeed, Laurent is consumed by self-doubt. He questions his own capabilities and worries that he will inevitably fail, breaking the trust she has placed in him. After a moment of quiet contemplation, Laurent's resolve hardens. He addresses Lillian directly and makes his decision, declaring, "I'll do it. I'll create a new guild that's different from the others." A knowing smile spreads across Lillian's face. She reveals she was certain he would agree, admitting it's because he is someone she greatly admires. Deciding the matter is settled, she calls for a waiter, offering to pay for their meal to celebrate his new path. Laurent thanks her for the gesture, but Lillian is already moving on, filled with energy. She grabs his hand and insists they must leave immediately to begin the process of creating the guild, proclaiming, "Let's finish this today." And promptly begins dragging a shocked Laurent through the city streets. She excitedly announces their ambitious plan: "We will announce the opening of your guild tomorrow." At the guild application office, an official approves the paperwork for their new alchemy establishment. Laurent is stunned that they managed to create a guild in a single day, and Lillian eagerly states that their hard work starts now. Standing before their new headquarters, Laurent reads the sign for Spirit Arsenal, remarking that it's a great name. He and Lillian shake hands, formally agreeing to make their guild the best in town. Inside, they discuss their next steps. Lillian points out the need to recruit members, and Laurent lists the specific roles required: refiners, a workshop manager, and silversmiths. He expresses doubt about finding so many people, but Lillian confidently tells him to leave it to her, promising her full support. Sometime later, Laurent is exhausted. Thanks to Lillian's recommendation, applicants have been arriving constantly. However, after conducting many interviews, he internally laments that he still hasn't found any suitable members. Frustrated but resolute, he calls for the next person, determined to find someone talented. The interviews continue to go poorly, with Laurent internally noting how difficult it is to find talent. His appraisal skill reveals another applicant's stats are too low to be suitable. His frustration finally boils over, and he slams his hand on the desk before regretfully dismissing the startled candidate. Exhausted by the endless stream of unsuitable candidates, Laurent Gil feels the recruitment process is a waste of time, desperately wishing for a single talented person. Just then, the next applicant enters, a red-haired woman named Ari who wishes to apply for the silversmith position. Seeing a potential match for his needs, Laurent agrees to begin the interview. Using his appraisal skill, Laurent is stunned by what he discovers. While Ari's silver crafting skill has low potential, her ore refining skill shows the capacity to grow from rank E to A. He immediately recognizes this as a first-class talent. Puzzled by the discrepancy, Laurent asks Ari why she applied to be a silversmith. She explains that it was simply her previous job. Seeing an opportunity, Laurent changes his line of questioning and makes a new proposal. He suggests she become a refiner instead. Ari is taken aback by the suggestion to be a refiner. Laurent presses on, explaining that his guild is in dire need of them and asks for her support. Overwhelmed and desperate for any work, Ari bows deeply, stating that as long as she is hired, she is willing to do any job. Laurent asks if Ari has any questions, and she quietly says no. Internally, she is convinced she will fail this interview just like all the others. Laurent thanks her for her time, concluding the meeting. With a quiet apology, Ari bows and exits the room. As she walks away from the guild hall, Ari reflects on her misfortune. Since being fired from her last guild, she has failed every interview. Believing Spirit Arsenal was her last hope, she feels dejected. Suddenly, she is stopped by a messenger who hands her a sealed letter, leaving her to wonder who could have sent it. Reading the acceptance letter, Ari is overcome with joy and disbelief. She reflects on her many past failures and how close she was to giving up, astonished that the new guild, supported by the prestigious Guardians of the Magic Tree, would hire her after she thought she had failed the interview. Filled with renewed purpose, Ari feels ecstatic that she can continue to work in a workshop. She arrives at the designated location and cheerfully announces her presence. Laurent Gil greets her warmly. After Ari expresses her excitement to work together, she looks around the empty workshop and asks where everyone else is. Laurent calmly informs her that she is the only person he hired, leaving her stunned as he offers to show her around. Ari's anxiety surges. She realizes she must tell him she was hired as a refiner, a job she feels deeply unqualified for. Her mind is flooded with a traumatic memory of a past employer berating and firing her for wasting expensive ores, fueling her fear that she will disappoint Laurent and be kicked out again. Noticing her distress, Laurent asks if anything is wrong. Ari quickly dismisses his concern, claiming nothing is amiss. Seeing through her hesitation, he decides to proceed, leading her further into the workshop and explaining that this is where she will work. Laurent proudly presents the well-equipped workspace, explaining that the high-quality furnace and all the prepared tools are for her exclusive use. He then asks if she knows the basic refining methods. Ari admits she only knows the most basic ones, and Laurent suggests they start with a practical trial. Determined to succeed, Ari tells her trembling hands to be still. She begins her first test, focusing her magic on the raw ore and commanding it to ignite. And the iron heats up instantly. Ari struggles to control the sudden surge of power, panicking that she will burn the material. Her attempt to regulate the temperature fails, resulting in an uncontrolled burst of heat. Looking at the ruined iron on the anvil, Ari immediately judges her work a failure. She feels the hammer is too heavy and begins to despair, wondering if she is truly unfit to be a refiner. Despite her feelings of inadequacy, she resolves to at least do her best. After some time, she approaches her new employer and apologetically presents her results: 9 blocks of burnt rank E iron and a single, successful block of rank D iron. Ari braces herself, fully expecting Laurent to fire her for the poor outcome. Instead, he looks at her with a wide, enthusiastic smile, exclaiming, "Ari, you did very well. You're very talented." Laurent grabs her hand, explaining that he's thrilled because she managed to make a rank D iron block so quickly. He tells her not to worry about the mess and to leave the chores to him, insisting that her only job is to focus on learning how to make good use of her incredible talent. Despite her initial hesitation, Ari finds herself able to concentrate on refining in a way she never thought possible. Laurent, having taken care of all other tasks, tells her to let him know if she needs anything, allowing her to focus completely on her work. Ari reflects on her progress with immense satisfaction. Though she initially doubted her ability, the focused environment makes her feel like a professional, and she is proud of the great strides she's making. With Laurent observing from a distance, Ari channels her full concentration into her work at the forge. She skillfully manipulates the raw materials with her hammer, bringing the process to a brilliant, successful conclusion. Her efforts yield a block of C-rank iron. Thrilled with the result, Ari sees it as a tangible way to repay Laurent and prove she isn't wasting his materials. She eagerly rushes to show him her accomplishment. Ari presents the C-rank iron to Laurent, proudly stating that they can sell it. He calmly acknowledges her work, but his expression turns serious. He informs her that he didn't hire her to make C-rank iron for a small profit, explaining that this is merely a step in the process of what he truly wants. Laurent then reveals his true objective, a massive pile of ores from which he needs her to refine Ranka metals. Ari is stunned, protesting that such a task is impossible even for a Ranka refiner. Unfazed, Laurent simply expresses his belief in her ability and instructs her to follow him to the workshop to begin their refining work. Laurent apologizes for pressuring Ari, acknowledging that while it took her a short time to upgrade her ore refining to rank C, she still has room for improvement. He reveals the reason for his high expectations: her skills potential is rank A, and she will need talent and hard work to turn all the ores into A-rank metals. He tells her that he can do nothing but watch over her, but he wants to bet on her talent and determined efforts. As she works, Ari recalls a past failure, remembering an ore shattering in her hands. Ari reflects internally, admitting she feels calm with Laurent present. However, this feeling is overshadowed by a growing anxiety that the person who always supports her might leave one day, a thought that makes her deeply uneasy. Her fear of losing him galvanizes her resolve. She decides she doesn't want him to leave and wants to be helpful to the person who has placed so much hope in her. For that reason, she concludes, she must succeed. Filled with a new sense of purpose, Ari declares that she must turn all the iron blocks into rank A ones and become a rank A refiner. The grueling process begins. On the first day, Ari struggles, unable to understand the technique and finding it difficult to shape the metal as the fire burns her eyes. After a week of relentless effort, Ari presents the fruit of her labor to Laurent, a perfectly refined ingot of rank A iron. Overwhelmed, she begins to thank him for making it possible. But Laurent humbly deflects the praise. He tells her that he only provided the space for her inherent talent to awaken, and that her success was entirely due to her own hard work. He looks at her with pride and says, "Well done." Tears of joy and relief stream down Ari's face as she accepts his praise with a heartfelt, "Of course." With Ari's position as refiner secured, Laurent's thoughts turn to the future. He resolves to hire silversmiths and a manager next, determined to make his guild, Spirit Arsenal, the best in town. 1 month later, Laurent Gil stands outside, pleased with the guild's increased production. He reflects on how encouraging it is to have this aspect of their operations running so smoothly. A witch named Lillian arrives, apologizing for disturbing him. Laurent, carrying a large sack of goods, asks her to wait a moment for tea, but she insists he not bother. She observes that he seems to be doing much better now. Just then, Ari rushes in, asking for a moment of Laurent's time. He introduces her to Lillian as the guild's refiner. Ari presents a box to the witch, who looks down at its contents with a shocked expression. Lillian is amazed by the quality of the items, asking if Ari made them herself. Laurent confirms that Ari crafted everything, not just the earthcraft. Ari shyly admits she was just following the guild master's instructions. Deeply impressed, Lillian declares that it shouldn't be possible to create such excellent products. She promises Ari that her party, the Guardians of the Magic Tree, will achieve results in their next dungeon conquest worthy of her efforts. Lillian enthusiastically agrees to the partnership. As she and Laurent leave the workshop, he thanks her for coming, expressing his belief that her approval will boost Ari's confidence. Lillian admits she was initially a little worried when he first asked her to come over. Walking through the city streets, Lillian praises Laurent for his skill and nurturing talent, but he modestly deflects the compliment. Announcing she must depart, Lillian promises to inform him of the results of her party's next dungeon conquest before bidding him farewell. Elsewhere, at the opulent Golden Hawks Guildhall, a guild member frantically orders everyone to line up, shouting that Lady Jill has returned, as dozens of uniformed members assemble in perfect formation to greet their leader with a resounding, "Welcome back, Lady Jill." Lady Jill, a formidable woman with long blonde hair, strides into the hall, flanked by two companions. She calmly tells a subordinate that she has asked the guildmaster to stop these formal greetings, as she doesn't enjoy them. Internally, however, she reflects that her current position and abilities are all thanks to one person, Mr. Laurent. Jill recalls a memory of a younger, more energetic Laurent encouraging her, stating she had the potential to be an armor knight. A hesitant Jill expressed her doubts, explaining she lacked the stamina for heavy armor, but Laurent cheerfully dismissed her concerns, promising they could build up her strength together. The flashback continues, with Jill recalling the beginning of Laurent's strict training. She was put through a grueling regimen designed for an armor knight, covering basic stamina and muscle conditioning, as well as intense offensive and defensive drills. She even trained in melee combat, an area she was particularly weak in. The memory alone is enough to make her sweat, as she remembers just how harsh the training was. After a long period of this training, Laurent finally informed Jill that she had cleared her quota. Overjoyed, she thanked him profusely, proudly declaring that thanks to his guidance, she could now be a good tank. Laurent, however, seemed confused by her statement, reminding her that she was supposed to become a DPS armor knight. Jill was stunned by this revelation, believing she had only been learning how to move with a shield. Seeing her doubt, Laurent offered his hand and reassured her with a confident smile, stating he was sure she could do it. Despite her hesitation, she accepted his hand, and he encouraged her to follow him. He led her through the guild hall, and when she asked where they were going, he simply told her to follow. They proceeded down a hallway until they reached a specific door, which Jill recognized with shock as the armory for high-ranking members, leaving her to wonder why he had brought her there. Inside, displayed prominently in a case, was a magnificent sword. Laurent announced that this weapon was specially made for her. Jill was taken aback, protesting that a member of her low rank wasn't qualified for such an item. Laurent admitted it took considerable effort and that it was beyond the guild's means to afford such a weapon. He explained that he did it because he truly believed she could succeed. Reflecting on this moment, Jill realized his words conveyed an absolute faith in her potential. This memory fuels her present-day resolve to become the first-class armor knight he always imagined she could be. In the present, a male adventurer leads Jill and two others into a dungeon, explaining that her first test is to defeat a golem. As they stand ready, he warns that the creature is approaching, and a massive stone form begins to rise from the ground. A hulking golem fully emerges from the cavern wall, its powerful form towering over the party. Without warning, the golem swings its enormous stone fist in a devastating attack. The sheer force of the blow sends the male adventurer reeling, and he immediately screams for everyone to retreat. As he shouts again, Jill stands her ground, her mind flashing back to her grueling training. She realizes this is the very moment she trained for and questions why she should fear a monster made of mere stone. Filled with determination and ignoring the calls to flee, Jill charges forward, leaping into the air and bringing her custom sword around in a powerful, fluid arc. And with a single, clean slice, she severs the golem's massive arm, proving the worth of her training and Laurent's faith in her. While her party members remained stunned by her ability to fell a golem in a single cut, Jill internally celebrated her success. She recalled defeating 3 golems in her first battle, an unusual feat for a novice, all thanks to her training. Upon returning to the guild, she was immediately summoned by the guildmaster, hoping her mentor, Laurent, would compliment her. In a flashback, the guildmaster noted her victory over 3 golems and questioned if she was ready for more difficult quests. Jill, however, insisted she still needed more training. She mentioned a new trial designed by Laurent that required defeating 5 golems, a test she had not yet had the chance to complete. Jill reflected on her gratitude towards Laurent, crediting his guidance for saving her from a life as an ordinary archer. Filled with admiration for her mentor, she approached the door to his room, eager to see him. Thinking of all the things she wanted to tell him, Jill felt a sense of relief at finally being able to see him after so long. She pushed open the door and, with a radiant smile, announced her return to Mr. Laurent. Inside, she found not Laurent, but another man who was startled by her entrance, dropping a stack of papers. Jill, confused, stated that this was supposed to be Laurent's room. The man, introducing himself as Laurent, delivered shocking news: the ex-member Laurent had already been banished from the guild. The revelation stunned Jill into disbelief, and she erupted in anger, shouting that there must be a misunderstanding. She immediately turned and stormed out of the room, demanding answers as she furiously confronted the guildmaster. Bursting into the guildmaster's office, Jill angrily demands to know why he kicked Laurent out of the guild. The guildmaster, sitting calmly beside Laurent, simply asks Jill what is wrong. Jill insists there must be a misunderstanding, unable to fathom what Laurent could have done to deserve banishment. Inside a dark dungeon, a party of adventurers advances. A scout suddenly calls out to his captain, warning that multiple goblins are approaching their position. The captain, a man with long blonde hair, calmly orders a long-range attack. With the command ready, he signals his party to engage. Responding instantly, an archer and a mage unleash a coordinated volley of arrows and magic, which tears through the goblin horde, eliminating them in a single, devastating strike. As the dust settles on the slain monsters, a subordinate reports their complete success to the captain. The captain, Marco, smirks, declaring it was easy. He recalls how a man named Lucius had given him the order, and how he had confidently asked to handle it himself. Having been informed by his scouts, Marco leads his party forward, announcing their arrival at the deepest part of the dungeon and urging his team to hurry. Upon entering the final chamber, they are confronted by a shocking sight: a vast cavern filled with countless ornate coffins. A subordinate, stunned, asks if this is what a large dungeon is supposed to look like, and Marco instructs him to check the other side. The investigation confirms their fears: the coffins are filled with skeletons. Despite the grim discovery, Marco projects confidence, telling his subordinate that he is thinking of a plan and that the man can take a break. Internally, however, Marco's confidence has shattered. He laments his team's dire situation: they are exhausted, have lost weapons, and lack sufficient earthcraft to support a fight against such a large number of enemies. The immense pressure of potential failure weighs on him, as he flashes back to a memory of being threatened with termination. When his subordinate tries to make a report, a stressed Marco angrily dismisses him, shouting to be told later. Marco considers a suicidal attack but quickly dismisses it as a stupid move. Realizing success is impossible, he makes a decisive command: retreat. He declares they will take this information back to the guild, leaving his subordinate shocked by the order. Marco's subordinate suggests they should at least try to fight, but Marco furiously rejects the idea. He berates the man, shouting that they lack the necessary supplies, area of effect attacks, or heavy hitters to succeed. He questions if the subordinate is willing to sacrifice their soldiers and expensive gear for a futile attempt, demanding to know if he has any justification for such a loss. Ignoring the tirade, the subordinate looks past his captain and states that another force has arrived. Enraged by the interruption, Marco grabs him by the collar, demanding to know who he is talking about. The subordinate reveals the newcomers, a party of 4 adventurers identified as the main force of the Guardians of the Magic Tree, led by a swordsman named Liliane. Marco freezes, processing this unexpected development. His anger evaporates, replaced by a sudden, manic glee. He laughs, declaring that he takes back his earlier order to retreat. He now sees the situation as incredibly beneficial, proclaiming that victory will be theirs. On the cavern floor, Liliane and his party engage the undead horde. As his shield-bearing, mage, and archer companions move into position, Liliane dashes forward, deflecting a skeleton's attack with one of his twin blades. And in a spinning leap, he shatters the creature. Simultaneously, a precisely aimed arrow from his party's archer flies past him, striking another skeleton in the distance. On the front lines, the Guardians of the Magic Tree fight with practiced coordination. An archer calls out to a swordsman, offering to provide covering fire as he engages a skeleton warrior. Observing from a safe distance, Marco smirks as he notes the lower guild's attack. He instructs his subordinate to look closely at their damaged weapons, revealing that his own guild, Golden Hawk, has monopolized all of the earthcraft used for equipment repair. Marco confidently explains that without the ability to repair their gear, it will be impossible for the other party to defeat the massive army of monsters. Satisfied, he turns to his own waiting soldiers and gives the order to prepare for battle. When his subordinate asks when they will strike, Marco cryptically replies that they will move in after the fireworks. Down on the battlefield, a female mage from the Guardians of the Magic Tree begins to gather an immense amount of lightning energy, unleashing her powerful spell as her party members look on. Marco watches the spectacle unfold, uttering the single word, "break," as the magic descends upon the undead. And a colossal bolt of lightning obliterates a large section of the skeleton army in a blinding flash. Observing the aftermath of the massive spell, Marco and his subordinate shield their eyes. Marco confidently notes the mage cannot use such power continuously and declares his intention to offer the victory of this dungeon conquest to a certain Mr. Lucius, shocking his subordinate. Meanwhile, Lilien's party stands ready. Her vanguard, comprised of a shield-bearer and a swordsman, holds the front while an archer in the rear prepares a magically imbued arrow. Marco's confidence shatters as he spots the party using an unexpected skill, earthcraft, to scale the cliff face. Panicked that the dungeon will be conquered before he can act, he orders his own forces to charge immediately. It is too late. At the top of the cliff, one of Lilien's companions congratulates her on a job well done, suggesting they can now take a break. Lilien, however, remains focused, stating that she is not finished yet. And ignoring her teammates' alarmed question, she announces her intention to deliver a final blow, gathering a tremendous amount of magical energy into her staff, unleashing a second, decisive lightning spell that obliterates the few remaining enemies. As Lilien confirms the area is cleared, Marco can only stare in utter disbelief, his plan completely foiled. As Marco collapses to his knees in utter defeat, a triumphant Lilien declares that they have achieved the best possible result. Below, her party member, Laurent, retrieves the glowing dungeon core from the earth, promising to deliver it to her and solidifying their hard-won victory. Elsewhere, Marco concludes his report to his guild leader, Jill. Enraged, Jill questions why Marco simply stood by and watched their enemy succeed in the dungeon. Marco frantically denies responsibility, claiming it was only because their foe somehow managed to acquire the earthcraft, but Jill silences him with a furious shout. Jill declares Marco a shame to their elite members and summarily demotes him, ordering him to leave. As Marco departs in disgrace, Jill turns to another member, a woman named Diane, and asks if they have a replacement. Jill dismisses the idea of recruiting the girl who improved under Laurent, deeming it too early for her. Diane points out the core of the problem: their guild has monopolized all of the earthcraft, making it impossible for anyone else to obtain it, which implies the existence of traitors. Realizing this, Jill smashes his fist down, vowing to uncover and crush them as he orders the representatives of every guild to be summoned. In another location, a woman named Ari is drawn by a loud noise. She finds Lilien, who dismisses it as a fallen cup. Ari expresses her concern that Lilien is overworking herself with her own tasks in training for new hires. Lilien gratefully accepts her offer of help just as a clock chimes, signaling it is time for an interview. Meanwhile, Laurent rushes through a hallway, realizing Ari was right about his overwhelming workload. He collapses from exhaustion, recognizing that to continue their great progress on the spirit arsenal, he desperately needs to acquire the workshop management skill. A young man named Ling Riles introduces himself, applying for a mineral mining job. Laurent immediately recognizes his potential, noting internally that Ling has a first-rate mineral mining skill and is a gem that can shine even brighter with polishing. Laurent assesses Ling's potential, seeing that while his mineral mining is already A rank, his workshop management, store management, and mine management skills could all be raised to A rank as well. Convinced Ling is a first-rate prospect, Laurent tells him he has one condition for hiring him. Laurent reveals his condition: he wants Ling to work on the shop's management, not mining. He passionately declares his intent to draw out Ling's hidden talent, promising his full support to help him shine. Ling expresses his lack of confidence, admitting he has never worked in management before. Despite his hesitation, he accepts Laurent's insistent offer, and the two shake hands, with Ling stating he looks forward to working with them. Wasting no time, Laurent begins explaining the management work. He presents a magical accounting book, which Ling recognizes, and instructs him to write his name in it, as the best way to learn is through practice. As Ling holds the book, glowing numbers float off the pages. He exclaims in surprise, and Laurent confirms that the item is working as intended. He explains that the book automatically calculates expenses for anyone who possesses the workshop management skill. Laurent continues Ling Ryal's training, explaining that he will understand more with practice. He points to the magical accounting book, showing how organizing data causes the numbers, representing costs, to reduce. Laurent clarifies that this is because making the data brief eliminates waste, and he formally assigns Ling the task of reducing the workshop's costs. After a brief moment of self-doubt, Ling throws himself into the task with determination. He quickly finds that as he identifies and saves on waste, the cost numbers in the book continuously decrease. Realizing the job is a perfect fit for him, a system notification announces that his workshop management skill has ranked up, bringing a satisfied smile to Laurent's face. Later, Laurent meets with a client, a woman in a large witch's hat. She thanks him profusely, explaining that the supplies he provided were the key to her party winning the dungeon conquest against the Golden Hawk Party, securing first place in the number of monsters defeated. Laurent modestly accepts her thanks and, noting that news travels fast, brings up the recent discovery of a new mine. He asks if he might use the ores her party acquired. The woman readily agrees, mentioning she was already planning to order new gear from him, but her subsequent hesitation makes Laurent sense that something is amiss. The woman correctly guesses that Laurent is short on money. He confirms this, recalling how the bank refused him a loan. However, he explains the condition they gave him: if he can increase his profit ratio by 5%, he will be approved for the 50 million G loan he needs. Acknowledging the difficulty of this task given his current situation, Laurent's resolve hardens. He firmly promises the woman that he will succeed and deliver her gear soon. Trusting his word, she tells him she is counting on him. A female workshop employee, motivated to repay Laurent's favor, vows to do her best. Her dedication is interrupted when Ling Ryals rushes past, causing her to stumble and fall. Another worker helps her up, explaining that Ling is in a hurry because the month's work is particularly harsh, and she resolves to watch over him. Ling, stressed, reflects on his goal to increase the profit ratio by 5%. Having only achieved a 2% increase so far, he feels immense pressure to do more. In his haste, he makes reckless decisions, telling workers to reuse cracked magical items and broken tools to cut costs, insisting they won't complete their tasks in time otherwise. The consequences of Ling's orders are immediate and disastrous. A magical item rampages, badly burning a worker, while hammers begin to shatter under the strain. Overwhelmed by the chaos and his failure, Ling orders everyone to stop working just as Laurent arrives to witness the scene. Laurent calmly asks what happened. A worker apologizes as Ling confesses his mistakes, admitting he pushed everyone too hard to meet the deadline. Laurent listens, then looks at Ling and tells him something unexpected: "You don't have to achieve the 5% goal." Laurent elaborates, explaining that Ling's great talent is growing day by day and that he simply needs to be patient and believe in himself. He offers a fist bump as a sign of encouragement. A look of understanding dawns on Ling's face, and he suddenly excuses himself, running off with a new purpose. As Ling runs, he vows that he won't make the same mistakes again and that he will succeed this time. The female worker asks Laurent if Ling will be alright. Laurent smiles, confident that Ling will understand his hints about patience and not rushing. While cleaning up the workshop, Ling grows frustrated with the time-consuming labor and the mounting expenses from the previous day's failures. Despite the setbacks, he notes that the work is progressing quickly. He has a sudden realization that he must inspect the tools carefully. As he does, his vision abruptly blurs, and he cries out in shock, momentarily blinded. His sight returns, but the world has changed. He is stunned to see the entire workshop overlaid with floating numbers, like an account book. He recognizes this as his new workshop management skill and spots a potential accident, shouting for a worker to stop before they get injured. With his new ability, Ling transforms into a proactive manager, prioritizing safety and earning a rank up for his skill. Laurent and another worker observe this change, noting how different he is now. Ling proudly reports to Laurent that he has increased the profit ratio by 5%, but they still need ores to produce gear. He reveals he has acquired a loan and a dungeon pass, understanding that the pass will be wasted if he fails his mission. Laurent expresses his complete faith in Ling's success. Filled with confidence, Ling departs for the dungeon, promising to return with good news. As Laurent watches him go, now assured of their ore supply, a female worker approaches to announce that he has a guest. The guest Laurent was waiting for arrives. A well-dressed woman with blonde hair offers a polite greeting, which is met with stunned recognition from Laurent, who identifies her as Miss Diana. Inside the workshop, Diana makes her disdain clear, calling the place a barren workshop. Laurent questions her attitude, reminding her of her position. Just then, a young, blonde-haired man enters, announcing he needs to speak with Laurent. After being asked to bring tea, the young man serves it, only for Diana to insult its quality. The assistant fumes at her arrogance. Diana then gets to the point of her visit, offering Laurent the chance for his workshop to become a subsidiary of the Golden Hawk. Diana frames her offer as a benevolent act, claiming she is there to save him from his small business. This condescension enrages Laurent's assistant, who shouts, "That's enough." However, Laurent calmly stops him, stating he will consider the offer depending on the conditions. She lays out her terms. Laurent must sell them rank iron, a material worth 300 G, for the exploitative price of 100 G each. She smirks, believing this to be an offer he cannot refuse for the privilege of becoming their subsidiary. To Diana's complete shock, Laurent smiles and agrees that he would be grateful to buy rank iron at that price. His deliberate misinterpretation infuriates her. She explodes in anger, asking if he's a fool and revealing she only came to mock him, not make a genuine offer. As Laurent and his assistant leave, Diana fumes, declaring this situation ridiculous. She concludes that Laurent must be Liliane's lover, dismissing him and the entire encounter as a disgusting waste of time. Elsewhere, in a grand estate, a nobleman named Count Elson summons a man called Lucius. The Count explains he has a single, important request concerning his daughter, who is soon to be married. Lucius asks if the request is related to the marriage, and the Count confirms it is. He wishes to prepare silverware for his daughter and, noting that Lucius commands many skilled alchemists, formally invites him to a silverware fair that he is hosting. The Count elaborates on his plan to make the fair a regular town specialty, a grand event where alchemists compete on skill alone. He reveals that the prize for the first champion will serve as his daughter's dowry. Looking the Count in the eye, Lucius accepts the challenge without hesitation. He confidently assures the Count, "I'll win the championship." Pleased, Count Elson states he expected such a response and proposes a celebratory toast. As they drink, Lucius privately scoffs at the shitty prodigal nobleman, resolving to play along and use the competition as a chance to display his own prowess and produce the finest silverware. Laurent arrives at the Quest reception office, a place he hasn't visited in a long time. He recalls Liliane mentioning she would do something concerning the receptionist as he approaches the counter, where a familiar woman greets him. He requests to hire 5 individuals with a mineral mining skill above B rank and another 5 with an item storage skill above C rank. The receptionist, flustered, checks her records and then tearfully apologizes, informing him that there are no available adventurers with the required mining skill. The receptionist is distraught, remembering how poorly she had treated him before, but Laurent calmly tells her to raise her head, assuring her that he has already forgotten about it. He asks her to contact him if she finds anyone with the mining skill and to send the 5 with item storage to him, which she gratefully accepts. Leaving the office, Laurent reflects on the rarity of freelancers with high-level mining skills. As evening approaches and hunger sets in, he decides to take a break and heads to a tavern, observed by a woman named Ale. Inside, he is approached by a man who recognizes him. The man introduces himself as Zenth, the manager of the refinery guild, and recalls meeting Laurent at a Golden Hawk meeting. Laurent permits him to join his table. Zenth assumes Laurent must have become an elite member of the Golden Hawk Guild by now, but is stunned when Laurent calmly reveals he was kicked out. Seeing the manager's shock, Laurent reassures him that he is doing well now and that it's fine to discuss the matter. Zenth laments his unbearable situation to Laurent. He explains that he was forced to drive away his refiners to focus on another task, producing the finest silverware for a great lord who was searching for a dowry for his daughter's marriage. This lord demanded Zentha's guild deliver A-rank iron at a low price of 200 G each, disrupting his entire business. Seeing an opportunity, Laurent calmly proposes a solution. He offers to have his own guild produce the A-rank iron for Zenth at an even lower price of 100 G each. In return, he asks Zenth to loan him 5 employees who possess the mineral mining skill at B rank or higher. Zenth is shocked but relieved by the offer, and they quickly strike a deal, agreeing to work together for their mutual benefit. Zenth, grateful for the assistance, tells Laurent to feel free to ask for his help with anything in the future. They share another toast to their successful cooperation. As Laurent leaves the tavern, he reflects with satisfaction that he has finally secured the skilled manpower he needs. While walking through the evening streets, Laurent is approached by a small, hooded figure asking if he would like to buy some flowers. He internally notes that the child seems too small and her voice too thin to be a salesperson. Before he can respond, a rude passerby shoves the girl to the ground, telling her to get out of his way. Laurent immediately rushes to the girl's side to check if she is all right. As she pushes back her hood, she is revealed to be a young elf. He helps her pick up her scattered flowers and offers to buy them. Touched by his kindness, the elf girl thanks him and offers him a flower for free as a token of her gratitude. Sensing she might be struggling, Laurent asks the elf if she enjoys her job. He then reveals that he possesses a skill that allows him to discover people's talents. In return for the flower, he offers to appraise her talent, hoping to find the best possible result for her. The young elf agrees to his proposal. As Laurent appraises the young elf's talent, he is struck with disbelief. The status window that appears before him reveals something so extraordinary that he audibly gasps, questioning what he is seeing. Unaware of his internal shock, the elf girl simply looks on, wondering about the identity of this stranger who offered to help her. Laurent internally reels from the appraisal results, noting the girl's S-rank potential and her mastery of skills like silver crafting, material development, and enchanting. He questions how this is possible, as alchemy is a dwarven skill, and dwarves are enemies of the elves. As he puzzles over this, the girl's mother approaches, asking what happened to her daughter. The woman introduces herself as Sils, the girl's mother, and asks what Laurent wants with her child. Laurent explains that he is an appraiser from an alchemy guild and, in exchange for a flower, he appraised her daughter's skills, discovering her talent for alchemy. Sils is stunned that he could discern such detailed information so quickly. Laurent presses his inquiry, asking where her daughter learned the skill. Sils, realizing the conversation is too sensitive for a public space, invites him to her shop to talk further, an offer he readily accepts. In a private room, Sils begins to explain that the story behind her daughter's skill is a long one. She confirms that her daughter once lived in a dwarf's cave, a fact that startles Laurent given the known hostility between their races. Sils states that this very hostility is the reason her daughter learned alchemy. Sils recounts that not long ago, the elves were at war with a group of dwarves, a small conflict that escalated until a great deal of blood was spilt. During the fighting, her young daughter was captured by a dwarf and treated as a prisoner, forced to perform alchemy work for her captors. Sils finishes her story, explaining that despite being forced to learn alchemy during the war, her daughter came to love it. As an expert on skills, she desperately asks Laurent what she should think of this scar from the war and what they should do. Laurent calmly proposes a change in perspective, suggesting that instead of viewing her daughter's skill as a scar, she should think of it as a great treasure. Sils reacts with outrage, questioning how it could possibly be a treasure. He continues, acknowledging the skill's origin in a dark past but insisting there is a hidden light within it. Laurent then makes a stunning declaration: the girl, Kyle, has the potential to be an S-rank alchemist. Sils is left speechless by the mention of S-rank. Seizing the moment, Laurent passionately bows and pleads with her to entrust this great treasure to him, promising he will take care of her. From behind a nearby door, a male voice curtly dismisses his plea as silly. The speaker is revealed to be Kyle's father, S-kyuu, who steps into the room and firmly states he won't allow Laurent to hire his daughter. Despite Laurent's desperate appeal about Kyle's rare gift, S-kyuu confirms he has already heard about the situation. S-kyuu's anger erupts as he denounces alchemy as the work of the cave dwellers, the very dwarves who caused his daughter's past suffering. He refuses to let her pursue the same work, wanting only to forget those difficult times, and demands that Laurent leave them alone. Following the confrontation with S-kyuu, Laurent is left reeling. He agonizes over whether he must give up on Kyle, a genius whose own wish is to pursue alchemy, and feels frustrated by his inability to help her. He reflects on the impossible situation. Kyle, a girl who found a light despite the tortures of war, is being held back by her father, a man who cannot forget the scars of that same conflict. Laurent feels powerless, clenching his fists as he wonders how to reconcile their opposing views. Later, a woman in a witch's hat named Luan finds him, noting the worried expression on his face. Laurent dismisses her concern, claiming to be merely absent-minded, and quickly pivots the conversation to the business they need to discuss. As they walk, Luan confirms they are there to discuss a weapon order she previously mentioned, warning him that it is a difficult commission. She then presents him with a document detailing the gear her guild requires. And Laurent is stunned by the sheer volume. The list calls for multiple B-rank swords, armor sets, bows, shields, and staves for various roles. When he asks for the delivery date, Luan gives him an incredibly tight deadline, 1 week. Luan admits the request is unreasonable but explains that her guild, the Golden Hawk, needs the gear to successfully complete a dungeon conquest and protect their loot. Seeing this as a crucial opportunity for her guild, her plea strikes a chord with Laurent. With renewed purpose, he accepts the challenge without hesitation and immediately rushes off to begin the work. At the workshop, a young man named Ling greets Laurent, confirming that all 30 of the newly hired workers have arrived and are ready. Laurent is taken aback by the sheer number of craftsmen assembled for what must be a massive job. Ling confidently tells Laurent he has his back, proud that he has become a reliable subordinate. He also expresses his belief that Luan can become a great person if given the chance. Internally, Laurent knew there was no time for thinking, he needed to focus on the work before him, and immediately moved to begin. Laurent formally introduces himself to the assembled craftsmen as the workshop's owner. He acknowledges that taking on such a large job so suddenly might make them uneasy, but Ling interjects to assure them that they have his and Laurent's full support. Addressing the group, Laurent states plainly that the task will be extremely difficult. However, he expresses his firm belief that they will be able to complete it. His confidence galvanizes the workers, who roar in unison, "Now, let's begin." Laurent immediately begins organizing the workforce, starting by asking Ling for assistance. He pairs Ling with another craftsman, assigning one to molding and the other to detail work, instructing them to compensate for each other's skills to achieve the best performance, a principle he applies to all the teams. With the plan in motion, Laurent moves throughout the workshop, personally directing the newly formed groups, and ensuring the massive production effort is underway. Ling observes the workshop, internally marveling at Laurent's accomplishment. He had managed to take a group of complete strangers who had just met a few hours ago and forge them into a harmonious, efficient team. The craftsmen work with incredible speed and coordination. A young, blonde-haired man, seeing their progress, feels confident they will finish the large order on time and offers his help. After a period of intense labor, the final piece of equipment is finished. The craftsmen shout orders to load the last of the crates, filled with swords, shields, and armor, onto the waiting wagon. With the job done, Laurent sincerely thanks the exhausted workers for their incredible effort. The blonde-haired man urges him to hurry, and they quickly board the wagon to deliver the equipment to a Miss Liliane. Meanwhile, in a grand plaza, a crowd cheers for members of the Golden Guild. One of them smugly wishes good luck to their rivals, the No Weapon Guild, as they prepare for an upcoming event. Elsewhere, a woman in a witch's hat hands a pouch to Miss Liliane, remarking that all they can do now is trust them. Onlookers are stunned by the large sum of money exchanged as Laurent and Ling continue their journey. Arriving just in the nick of time, Laurent confidently calls out to Miss Liliane, who turns with a look of surprised relief. With a triumphant flourish, he presents the large, cloth-wrapped bundle, proclaiming, "Here it is." As the covers are pulled away, the crowd erupts in cheers at the sight of the newly delivered equipment, magic trees and an arsenal of new weapons. Watching the successful unveiling, Miss Liliane is visibly moved, whispering Laurent's name in astonishment and relief. She turns to him, expressing her profound gratitude for his timely delivery and insisting that she must repay the favor. Laurent humbly deflects her thanks, revealing that she was, in fact, the one who had helped him when he was depressed after losing his previous job. And that if it weren't for her, he wouldn't be in his current position. Identifying them both as guardians of the magic tree and spirit arsenal, he extends his hand, proposing that together they can build the best possible future. Filled with renewed purpose by the hope Laurent has given her, Miss Lillian firmly grips her staff. She declares her intention to launch a counterattack and fight her way to the top. Standing together, Laurent and Miss Lillian agree on their new objective, to defeat the Golden Hawk Guild. As they contemplate this new beginning, a receptionist informs Laurent that he has a guest, noting that she appears to be an elf. Laurent rushes to meet the visitor, his mind racing. He recalls a past failure where he couldn't save someone and resolves that this time, he must help. He enters the room to find the guest is Mrs. Sills, the elf he encountered before. He begins to apologize for the suddenness of their meeting. But she interrupts, insisting that she is the one who should apologize for the previous incident. She then explains that she has come to ask for a favor. After confirming that Laurent is a workshop owner, Mrs. Sills reveals her true purpose for visiting. She wants to commission some weapons from him. Laurent asks Mrs. Sills why she needs weapons. Clenching her fists, she explains it is to defend themselves, haunted by a memory of a past tragedy she does not want to experience again. Understanding her sentiment, Laurent then questions why she specifically sought him out for this request. Mrs. Sills explains that her business is performing poorly, leaving them with very little money. They came to this town specifically to acquire gear but are in a dangerous position without it. Acknowledging how it must look, she bows her head and formally pleads with Laurent to accept their request despite their financial situation. Laurent agrees to review her proposal, asking for her budget and the number of items she needs. Mrs. Sills presents a document containing the details, and with her hands pressed firmly on the table, she makes a desperate, final plea, "Please, help us. That's our limit." After examining the request, Laurent's expression turns grim. He apologetically informs her that he cannot fulfill even 50% of the order with the budget she has provided. As Mrs. Sills looks down in despair, Laurent internally questions if there is anything at all he can do to help, his mind racing for a solution. An idea strikes Laurent, and he suggests that they might be able to make something work if she allows him to hire Kyle. However, Mrs. Sills regretfully states that she cannot make such a decision without her husband's permission. The rejection leaves Laurent frustrated and powerless, unable to do anything about her unreasonable request. 7 days pass, and Laurent is still troubled by the encounter, sitting alone in his workshop. His thoughts are interrupted by a red-haired woman named Ari, who chides him for overworking and warns he'll miss something important. Her words jolt his memory, and realizing he's forgotten his appointments, he hastily rushes out the door. Laurent arrives at his appointment, apologizing to a woman in a large hat for his tardiness. She assures him she just arrived as well and invites him to sit. After asking if she is feeling better, he suggests they begin their meeting. The woman immediately presents her business proposition, asking Laurent if he would like to buy silver ore. She explains that while dungeons have been producing a surplus of the material, the Golden Hawk Guild has monopolized all the alchemists capable of manufacturing silverware. As Laurent quietly considers the problem, the woman perceives his troubled state. She notes that he seems upset about something and tells him that he often thinks too much. She offers him encouragement, stating that fear of failure makes it difficult to proceed, but he is no longer alone. She reminds him that the talented people he has nurtured, like a certain kid, are not as weak as he might believe and that sometimes he should just act on his desires. Putting their business aside for a future meeting, the woman calls out to someone named Kyle. She then asks Laurent to help the young girl, just as he once helped her, and encourages Kyle to tell him her wish. The elf girl, Kyle, formally introduces herself and explains she has come to ask for a favor. She reveals that a count is going to hold a silverware fair, and with a burst of emotion, she declares her profound love for crafting silver and directly implores Laurent for his help. With fierce determination burning in her eyes, Kyle makes her final, impassioned plea directly to Laurent. She shouts, "Please help me become a great silversmith," her entire being focused on this one critical request as the chapter comes to a close. Chapter 9, Silversmith. Following Kyle's plea, the protagonist apologizes, leading her to believe he is rejecting her request. He explains that he hesitated after learning about her past from her parents, as he was unsure if she would truly be happy. Kyle passionately refutes this, declaring that she loves alchemy and wants to dedicate her life to it. Moved by her conviction, the protagonist announces his hesitation is over and that he will convince her father, before formally inviting Kyle to create silverware for his guild. Kyle joyfully accepts the offer. They shake hands as the protagonist promises to help her become a great silversmith. Later, the protagonist and Kyle meet with Laurent to discuss guild expenditures. After Laurent boasts of their financial stability, the protagonist hands him a budget proposal, which leaves Laurent stunned by the high cost allocated for Kyle. Despite his initial reservations about the cost, Laurent tells the protagonist, Ling, that his mind is made up. He enthusiastically agrees to handle the furniture purchase and workshop remodeling, promising to finish as quickly as possible. Ling thanks him, then turns to Kyle to get started. Energized, Kyle agrees it's time to get to work. They arrive at the location for the new workshop, an impressive and stately building with a lush, vine-covered courtyard inside. Elsewhere, an elf woman excitedly tells her husband, S-kyuu, that their new neighbor bought a large quantity of flowers from them. S-kyuu calculates that the sale should be enough to cover their weapon and armor costs for the month and decides they should go thank the neighbor. They arrive at the workshop, where Ling greets them at the door. Inside, S-kyuu and his wife are taken aback by the fresh, forest-like air, questioning if the building is truly a workshop. As Ling leads them further in, they are stunned to see a young elf woman skillfully manipulating a mass of dark, magical energy. The couple is shocked to recognize their daughter, Kyle. She apologizes to her father for not telling him she had found a job, explaining her deep love for crafting silver. S-kyuu, however, is furious and demands to know what is going on, questioning how she could do this. Kyle continues to plead her case, reiterating her passion for making silverware and arguing that the workshop is a respectable place. With newfound resolve, she looks her father in the eye and declares, I won't give up my dream of being a silversmith, even if he disagrees with her choice. Continuing the confrontation, S-kyuu addresses Ling directly, asking if he built the workshop. He notes how clean the air is but adds with a stern expression that he does not appreciate this surprise. However, S-kyuu's anger subsides. He recalls telling Kyle to take care of herself, lamenting that there was no good place for an elf in town. In the present, he and his wife gently pat Kyle's head, giving her their blessing and accepting her decision. Sometime later, Ling formally introduces Kyle to the rest of the guild as their new silversmith. Kyle confidently presents herself, stating that despite her appearance, she possesses unique talents. Ling then calls for reports, and a guild member raises his hand. The guild's blacksmith presents a newly forged A-class weapon, boasting that its special ability allows it to destroy anything. He admits its critical flaw, however, it shatters after a single powerful blow. Kyle observes as it's explained that creating durable A-class items requires the product design skill. To address this, Ling and Laurent begin Kyle's training in a study. Ling presents her with a large stack of books on product design to memorize, and Kyle eagerly asks Laurent if he will be her teacher. And while she initially claims to be poor with textbooks, she quickly demonstrates a unique talent, stating she can effectively organize and memorize the contents with ease. With her training set to begin, Ling officially kicks things off. A woman bursts in calling for Kyle, who is deeply focused on her studies. Nearby, Laurent asks Ling about dinner plans, but Ling is preoccupied with Kyle, noting that she has studied to the point of exhaustion. Internally, he marvels at how much knowledge she has already absorbed and selects the next book for her curriculum. A brief flashback shows Kyle's first day of training. Eager to begin, she is presented with a large textbook by Ling. Upon seeing the sheer volume of its contents, she strengthens her resolve, determined to master it all within a single day. Having achieved a perfect score on her theoretical exams, Ling congratulates Kyle on her success. He then assigns her first practical test, to create a design for an A-class bow. He warns her that the difficulty is on a completely different level from her studies but promises his full support. Kyle requests a few high-rank bow designs to use as a reference. Ling provides a stack of blueprints he purchased, explaining that active workshop designs are kept confidential. Touched by his effort to support her, Kyle examines an example and confidently declares that she will do her best. The following days are a montage of diligent work. Ling provides Kyle with materials and, along with Laurent, observes her intense concentration as she drafts her design. They also share brief moments for refreshments, supporting her throughout the arduous process. Working late into the night, Kyle finally decides she must get some sleep. As she leaves her workspace, she overhears a hushed but tense discussion about the budget. She pauses outside the door, her curiosity piqued, just in time to hear Laurent's alarmed voice asking Ling if he is out of his mind. Ling quietly accepts responsibility as Laurent, exasperated, declares the task impossible. Laurent reveals the terms of the deal Ling made. He promised to sell 50 A-rank bows for 1 million gold in exchange for hiring Kyle. Having overheard the entire argument, Kyle is distraught, blaming her desire to be a silversmith for the immense pressure placed on Ling. Ling finds her outside her room and apologizes, followed closely by Laurent, who also expresses his regret for the confrontation. Ling clarifies to Kyle that the price was his own suggestion, not her parents', and that he insisted on it. When she asks why he would make such a promise, he states with conviction that it's because he is certain she can accomplish it. He then reveals his deeper motive, explaining that as an appraiser, he swore an oath to help talented people reach their full potential. He confesses that helping others is the only thing he can do, and that he once broke this promise, a failure he clearly regrets. Determined not to repeat his past mistake, Ling declares that he will follow his heart this time. He tells Kyle that her only responsibility is to enjoy her work at the academy, then wishes her good night and departs, leaving Laurent to watch him go. The next morning, Kyle sits in her room, flustered but with a newfound determination. Her thoughts are interrupted when Laurent appears at her door, bowing deeply and apologizing again for his behavior the previous night. Reflecting on her past behavior, Kyle admits to Ling that she was too indulged in her situation and hadn't considered the trouble she caused. With renewed purpose, she clenches her fist and declares her desire to contribute to the workshop like everyone else, promising to do her best if they give her a little more time. And vowing that one day, as a member of the Spirit Arsenal, she will repay everyone's favors. Internally, she focuses on her debt to Ling, determined to work hard and repay him, all while Laurent watches her transformation. Later, alone at her alchemy station, Kyle's determination solidifies. She thinks of Laurent, asking him to wait for her, and makes a firm promise to herself and the world: she will become the S-rank alchemist of Spirit Arsenal. Following her declaration, Kyle immerses herself in her work, driven by a fierce internal resolve to improve. Surrounded by discarded drafts, she pushes herself relentlessly at her desk. Observing from a distance, Ling, Laurent, and other workshop members grow concerned. They note that Kyle is pushing herself too hard for her age. One of them asks Ling to do something, and he agrees, promising his full support and asking them to take care of her. Ling enters Kyle's workspace, commending her for her hard work. He asks to see her design, reassuring her that it's fine even if it isn't finished yet. As he expected, Ling finds the design to be perfect. However, he points out a critical issue: their new workshop doesn't have a craftsman with the high-level skills required to create it. He estimates it would require at least B-rank skills. Understanding the limitation, Kyle immediately offers to simplify the base design. Ling agrees to leave the design adjustments to her and shifts focus to the next logistical hurdle. He hands a list of required materials to Laurent, who is shocked to discover that the price of a specific mineral has recently tripled, putting their project significantly over budget. Facing the sudden budget crisis, Laurent announces he has an idea. He asks Ling for permission to temporarily halt his management duties, confidently declaring that he will personally acquire the necessary ores within 5 days. Ling understands the necessity and agrees, promising to take care of the management work in Laurent's absence. Motivated by a desire to help Kyle, Laurent departs immediately, filled with determination and shouting, "Let's do this!" Over the next several days, the team dedicates themselves to their tasks. Laurent toils away, mining or with a pickaxe, while Kyle diligently works on the revised design. In the workshop, Ling directs the other members, keeping the project on track. 5 days later, Kyle proudly presents her work to Ling. She announces that the design is finished and now within the workshop's production capacity. Ling praises her for a job well done and tells her to get some rest. As Kyle leaves, she runs into Laurent, who has just returned. He is covered in dirt, carrying a pickaxe and sacks of ore, looking completely worn out. Shocked by his appearance, Kyle asks what happened, feeling a pang of guilt as she believes he is exhausted because of her. Laurent explains that he was simply doing the job he originally applied for and that he wants to do his best to help his colleagues. He tells her that her previous words of encouragement motivated him, as he truly wants to be part of the team. Deeply moved, Kyle sincerely thanks him, and he tells her not to push herself too hard. As Kyle waves goodbye, Laurent lets out a sigh of exhaustion. Ling, observing from the workshop door, notes that he seems to have made up with her. Seeing how tired he is from the mining, she offers to take over the final steps of the project, and he gratefully hands her a bag of materials. With determination, Ling immerses herself in the final, crucial stages of crafting. She works diligently at the forge, quenching the crafted components, before wiping the sweat from her brow, feeling the pressure of the important task. Sometime later, the client's party arrives to collect their order. Kyle proudly announces their success, attributing it to her own effort. The client, a distinguished elf, expresses his surprise that they managed to complete the task and praises them for their good work as he inspects the 50 A-rank bows. The elf tells his subordinate there is no need to inspect the goods further. He can tell from the divine light emanating from the bows that they have been blessed by the elven goddess, Ananoia, confirming their A-rank quality. Overwhelmed, he offers his sincere thanks to the team. As he prepares to depart, the client, who calls himself Spirit Arsenal, turns his attention specifically to Laurent. He expresses his deepest gratitude not just for the bows, but for discovering his daughter Kyle's talent and teaching her so well. As a final request before leaving, Spirit Arsenal asks Laurent, "Please take good care of my daughter in the future as well." Laurent readily agrees, shouting back, "Yes, of course." Sometime later, Laurent guides Kyle through a district known for its artisan shops. Kyle excitedly calls out to him, her attention captured by a window display filled with an impressive amount of silverware. Inside, Laurent directs her to a specific, exquisitely crafted silver platter. A woman with them praises its quality, and Laurent confirms it was made by a craftsman named Dorwin, revealing to Kyle that he will be her biggest rival in an upcoming silverware contest. Kyle processes the information that the platter's maker is her rival and asks to be left alone for a moment. As she walks away, Laurent immediately begins to second-guess his decision, wondering if he should have told her, but he concludes that it's better for her to face this reality sooner rather than later. His concern deepens as he watches her walk off. He reflects that her immense skill often makes him forget she is still just a young girl, and he worries that he might be pushing her too much. Finding her crouched on the ground, seemingly dejected, Laurent calls out her name. To his surprise, she springs to her feet with a burst of energy, turning to him with a bright, determined expression. "Mr. Laurent," she exclaims, "that silver platter was fascinating." She gushes about the beautiful design, declaring it was truly amazing. Laurent is taken aback, realizing with relief and admiration that she wasn't discouraged at all. She thrives on having a significant challenge to face. Brimming with enthusiasm, Kyle asks when her own creations might be displayed, dreaming of producing great works. Laurent, however, delivers a sobering reality. He apologizes, explaining that in this town, nobody will buy silverware from their workshop. Though momentarily taken aback, Kyle quickly reassures him, insisting that she is delighted enough just to be able to make silverware. She adds that as an elf, she is good at waiting, masking her disappointment with a cheerful demeanor before suggesting they look at other works. Later, while taking a break on a bench, Laurent apologizes again. Kyle tells him not to worry, but after complaining about being tired, she notices his troubled expression and asks him what's wrong. Laurent decides to confide in her, revealing that he once worked for Golden Hawk, the best guild in town. He explains that he built his current guild, Spirit Arsenal, after being fired, with the singular goal of defeating his former guild. He continues, explaining that Golden Hawk has monopolized all business in the area, meaning if Kyle were to quit Spirit Arsenal, she would be hired immediately. Kyle becomes indignant, cutting him off to declare that working anywhere else would be meaningless and that she is making silverware specifically to repay his kindness. Kyle passionately recounts how Laurent helped persuade her father and stayed up late giving her lessons, she expresses her profound gratitude for the effort he put in so that she could pursue what she loves, and proudly declares her identity and loyalty as the alchemist of Spirit Arsenal. Laurent acknowledges his own inexperience but promises to do his best. Kyle reciprocates, vowing to create silverware that brings happiness to people. With newfound determination, she then declares her ultimate goal, to one day become the best alchemist in the entire town. Energized by their outing, Kyle eagerly asks Laurent to tell her more about the town. He agrees, and she enthusiastically suggests they continue their exploration. Upon returning to the guild hall, Kyle and Laurent are greeted by a colleague. Kyle excitedly reports that their market research was not only fun but also very informative, exclaiming that she learned a great deal. Kyle tells her colleague she can't wait to put her new knowledge to the test. While she is being wished well, Laurent's focus has shifted. He thanks the colleague and asks if she can call for Ling, as he has something important to discuss. Laurent convenes a meeting with a blonde man, Ling, and another unidentified guild member. Apologizing for the suddenness, Laurent states he wants to discuss the future goals of their guild, the Spirit Arsenal, and immediately highlights their most pressing issue, their sole reliance on a single trading partner, the Guardians of the Magic Tree. Laurent formally proposes his plan to Ling and the others. To improve their situation, he wants to participate in the silver craftsmanship competition organized by Count Elson. Ling immediately considers the implications for publicity and profits. Laurent explains his reasoning, revealing a critical weakness in their rival, the Golden Hawk Guild: they cannot smelt earthcraft. He suspects this is why their alchemist keeps smelters away from the pot. Because of this limitation, the Golden Hawk can secure a B grade at best, making an A grade impossible for them. Laurent passionately states that if their guild wins, they will secure a major contract and their financial worries will be over. He reveals their trump card: they have a silversmith whose talent is equivalent to an S rank. Acknowledging the financial difficulty of refining a large quantity of materials, Laurent makes a heartfelt appeal to his guildmates, asking them to lend him their strength so they can defeat the Golden Hawk. His team is convinced. The red-haired guild member agrees to calculate the budget. Kyle passionately addresses her guildmates, acknowledging that she understands the risks and the formidable nature of their opponent. She declares with conviction that she believes they can win against even the strongest guild if everyone from the Spirit Arsenal is with her. She closes her eyes, affirming that it is her turn to support everyone and that she will definitely win. Her determination galvanizes the group. Inspired, Laurent clenches his fist as Kyle turns to him, enthusiastically declaring that they must win. With the group united, Ling notes their lack of time and suggests they decide quickly on what to make. Kyle immediately interjects, stating she has a good idea: she wants to create a product named after their workshop. The scene shifts to another guild's office, where a leader praises a blonde-haired woman named Jill for her remarkable exploits in dungeon conquests. He laments that if everyone were as capable as her, things would be much easier, highlighting the vast difference between her and the guild's slackers. Setting aside the complaints, the guild leader transitions to business, confirming that Jill has heard about the upcoming competition. He presents it as a job worthy of her, revealing the grand honor given to the winner, the role of delivering the silver craftsmanship to the bride. Jill immediately objects, stating that such a task is suited for craftsmen, not her. Her leader counters, framing the competition as a perfect promotional opportunity for their guild, as it attracts participants from all over. He dismisses her concerns about an alchemist being involved, insisting that the effort belongs to the guild. Inside the guild hall, Jill's guild leader lectures her, asserting that efforts are meaningless and only results matter. He dismisses the concept of effort as an excuse for those who fail. Seizing on his logic, Jill challenges him, asking if her own valuable results mean she is entitled to a reward. The guild leader confidently agrees, asking what she desires. Jill boldly makes her demand: she wants appraiser Laurent reinstated in the guild. Her leader is taken aback, questioning why she insists on bringing that specific man back. Looking at a memory of Laurent's departing back, Jill passionately explains her reasoning. She declares that without him, she is unable to give her full effort. Her leader is incredulous, questioning what she could possibly mean. He dismisses her dependency, stating that her achievements are a product of her own talent alone. As Jill begins to protest and explain Laurent's true contribution, the guild leader cuts her off, shouting at her to stop. He coldly rejects her request, stating it is inappropriate for the guild to allow the return of someone who was expelled. He claims Laurent was removed precisely because he lacked the results he values so highly. With that, he declares the conversation over, leaving Jill to clench her fist in silent, frustrated defeat. After Jill's abrupt departure, her guild leader sighs in frustration. He leans on his desk, thinking to himself that he cannot trust Jill and may need to reconsider the formation of the main force. He reflects that Laurent has always been a bothersome person. Elsewhere, in a workshop, a young elf artisan with long blonde hair concentrates intensely, channeling magical energy into a complex water-based sigil floating above a basin. As she attempts to forge an ornate chalice, Laurent watches her work with a serious expression. In the present, Laurent holds the finished product, a beautifully crafted but cracked chalice. The elf artisan explains that the project was a failure. The artifact was supposed to be an effective magical tool, but it cracked the moment she infused it with magic power. She apologizes profusely for wasting the materials. Laurent observes that they are running out of both materials and time, suggesting he has no choice but to proceed with a regular silver artifact. The elf pleads for one more chance, insisting that a standard item won't be enough to surpass the silver craftsman she once witnessed. She passionately argues that despite the dire situation, they can overcome the challenge if she can complete her work. With fierce determination, she declares, "I want to be the best. With everyone from the Spirit Arsenal by my side." With their last chance secured, the members of Spirit Arsenal rally together. Laurent and his teammates voice their shared determination, vowing to work hard and see this final project through to the end. The entire team pours their energy into the task, each member focusing on their part and giving their absolute all to the collective effort. As the final step, the elf artisan begins the ritual. She closes her eyes and prays to the spirits, asking them to bless the artifact not for herself, but for the sake of her wonderful teammates. Their combined efforts culminate in success. A beautifully crafted silver chalice materializes, leaving the other team members in awe. The elf artisan, filled with pride, presents their creation. "This is the silver artifact of our spirit arsenal." The day of the silverware fair arrives. The streets are crowded with people heading towards a grand, festive venue where Laurent and the elf artisan, Kyle, have come to display her work. Kyle is initially amazed by the festival's scale, but as she clutches the box containing her creation, she expresses her anxiety to Laurent, feeling that such a grand place is out of her league. Her worries mount as she considers the huge crowds and the other wonderful silverware on display, but Laurent interrupts her with a confident smile, telling her not to worry because it is going to be fine. He then declares that she is no lesser than any of the experienced smiths present, and that he, as an appraiser, can personally verify her incredible talent. As fireworks light up the evening sky, Laurent reminds Kyle to think back on all the hard work she and everyone else, Ari, Ling, Charlie, and the other guild members, put into her project. Assuring her that the box she holds contains the culmination of all that thought and effort. He tells her not to be nervous, because every single person gave it their all. He encourages her to be proud and present the amazing work of the Spirit Arsenal Guild. His words resonate with Kyle, who smiles with newfound confidence and grips the box tightly. With a final, booming declaration, Laurent sends her on her way, proclaiming that she will present the work of a future S-rank silversmith. Galvanized by his encouragement, Kyle takes a determined step forward, clutching her entry as she walks through the gates and into the bustling fairgrounds. She arrives at the registration desk, where an attendant directs participants to line up. Kyle approaches the clerk and, when asked for her entry, places the wooden box firmly on the counter. Kyle's creation, an ornate goblet, is displayed for the competition. The placard identifies the creator as Kyle Cotton and the affiliated guild as Spirit Arsenal, catching Laurent's attention. An official confirms that Kyle's registration is complete. As she and Laurent leave, a discussion about where to go next is cut short when a blonde woman spots Laurent from behind, her eyes widening as she whispers, "I found you." The woman rushes forward, grabbing Laurent and crying out his name. He is shocked to see her, asking, Jill. "Why are you here?" She tearfully explains that she has wanted to see him for a very long time. Jill apologizes for her emotional outburst, explaining she'd been searching for so long. She mentions hearing a rumor that he was avoiding her and angrily questions if someone named Lucius spread such lies just to get rid of her. She bows her head, assuming Laurent must hate being greeted by a student he's grown tired of. Flustered, Laurent quickly denies this, insisting he is happy to see her. Jae-jil looks up in surprise, admitting she thought he had grown to hate them. Jae-jil presses him for the truth, asking why he left the guild if he doesn't hate them. She reveals that she and the other members have been wondering for a long time if they did something wrong to cause his departure. Jae-jil desperately begs Laurent to come back, bowing and clutching his hand. As Laurent looks on with a conflicted expression, Kyle observes the scene from a distance, wondering what is happening. Their conversation is interrupted by the arrival of a man whom Laurent recognizes as Lucius. Jae-jil identifies him as the guildmaster, questioning his presence. Lucius dismissively tells her it's almost time to get ready and not to waste her time there. Lucius reminds Jae-jil of her important role in handing over the silverware to the bride, questioning if talking to an enemy is more important than her duty to the guild. He then attempts to lead her away, telling her to get ready. Laurent angrily shouts that everything Lucius told Jae-jil is nonsense. He reveals that Lucius had told him that nobody in the guild needed him anymore, which is why he left. Jae-jil looks at her guildmaster in shock, asking for the meaning of this revelation. Lucius smirks, callously asking why Laurent is so upset. He confirms that Laurent was banished for being incompetent and belittles him further, suggesting that if he's changed careers to babysitting, he should be in the shopping district instead. After a moment of tense silence, Laurent clenches his fist, deciding that talking is pointless. He declares that things won't go Lucius's way, because he has decided on a new path, to fight him. Lucius questions if Laurent truly intends to fight him. Laurent confirms this, boldly declaring that in the upcoming competition, his guild, Spirit Arsenal, will surpass the Golden Hawk. He proclaims that he will not back down anymore. With his new comrades standing behind him, Laurent announces that he now has things he wants to protect and people who support him. He tells Lucius that things will no longer go as he pleases. Lucius looks on with contempt, dismissing Laurent's words as big talk from a mere appraiser. Nearby, Jae-jil has overheard the entire confrontation. Her companion confirms what she heard, stating that Laurent is now their enemy. As he walks away, Laurent internally apologizes to Jae-jil, admitting he had wanted to tell her himself at some point. Jae-jil, distraught, confronts Laurent, pleading for him to say he is lying and that this is all a joke. He solemnly informs her that he and Golden Hawk have gone their separate ways for good. Lucius, observing the scene with Jae-jil, coldly asks if there is anything else to discuss, referring to Laurent's declaration as an oath. Standing firm with his party member, Laurent vows that they will win the competition. He tells Lucius that when that time comes, he hopes the guildmaster reflects on his actions. Laurent adds a final warning, telling Lucius not to think he will be at the top forever. Lucius smirks, mockingly forgiving Laurent for holding on to such an unattainable dream. He tells Laurent to enjoy Golden Hawk's victory celebration from below the stage, then condescendingly advises him to practice looking up, insulting his posture. Lucius dismisses the confrontation as unpleasant and leads a somber Jae-jil away. Laurent, turning to Kyle, apologizes if the encounter was frightening and suggests they depart as well. With their rivalry now declared, both men are singularly focused on the upcoming competition. As their respective groups walk in opposite directions, Laurent confidently states that victory will belong to them. At the Yelson's Silverware Fair, an announcer energizes the crowd, declaring that the best craftsmen from all over are competing. He describes their passionate work as they prepare to go up against each other. In the audience, Lucius watches with a confident expression, while Laurent and Kyle stand ready. With a final, booming announcement, the battle of pride between craftsmen officially begins.